All right, welcome back, everyone, to Umineko. I've taken, a few minutes of my time to rest, get my emotions back in order, process everything that just happened. It almost feels like everything up till now has been like almost a prologue, and like things just began last episode. You know, it started. Shit finally got real. Um, there's been so many awesome moments so far of like the buildup of tension and this hanging, uneasy atmosphere that they've had the whole time. You knew something was going to go terribly wrong. You just didn't quite know when, and um, that added a lot to it. But then last episode, it was like a half an hour or more of just nothing, no music, just straight rain, characters not quite saying what was going on, and you're just left hanging, and you're like, what's going on, what's happening? And then it all comes crashing down, and the big reveal happens, and it's fucking intense. It's the best word I got for it. It was great. Oh man, I feel like such an idiot stopping just before all this began all that time ago. I said this last episode, but Jesus, man. All right, let's keep going. Let's see where we go from here. How do our characters cope with with this tragedy, with what just happened? I'm curious to see how they all react. Based on their personalities and what we know of each of them so far. Um, how are they all going to, react to the situation and deal with it? I imagine we just don't tell Maria for the time being. Nothing good can come of that. So we have to hide it from Maria somehow for a while. But she's gonna find out eventually. It's gonna be a shit show when she does. Oof. All right. Okay. Let's get started.
倒れているのはクラウスおじさん、ルドルフおじさん、キリエおばさんにローザおばさん、ゴーダさんで5人。
Is it 5 or 6? Balor wasn't sure at first, but then he started saying that he couldn't count the number of people on one hand. Hold on, let me just double check that. Yeah, all good. Okay. So, is someone just
い
so
や、
mangled? Yeah. Is it going to be the case where, like, the bodies are so fucking hideously mangled that there's actually more people there than you realize?
6人や。
Ugh.
ここにもう一人おる。
The body Hideyoshi was looking down on now happened to be hidden among the shadows in that mountain range of objects. In a blind spot to George, who stood by the entrance. Oh, if it's Shannon, and George is gonna see Shannon. He hasn't lost anyone yet, but I was saying that his side of the part of the family was lucky, but so George couldn't tell whose body it was. Oh no. So George cursed himself. He cursed the fact that his worst guesses always turned out to be right.
じゃあお父さんの足元に倒れているのはシャノンなんだね。
Oh.
ああ、シャノンちゃんや。
Fuck. George fell completely silent. He shook slightly, his lower lip trembling. Normally, he would have wanted to run to his beloved's body, screaming and crying. However, before rashly rushing forward, he worked to keep his composure and asked his father,
シャノンもクラウスおじさんたちと同じなのかな。
Yeah. Hideyoshi deeply understood the meaning of those words, so he couldn't give George an immediate answer. Or rather, he felt that silence was the only sincere and loving response he could give to George right now. When George asked if Shannon was the same, he meant to ask whether her corpse was in the same condition as the others or not. Since Hideyoshi hadn't denied it, it meant her corpse was in the same brutal state.
シャノンを見てもいいかな。いや、あかん。どうして？だってもう二度とシャノンの顔を見られないんだよ。
Don't think you're gonna be able to see it now?
その最後の顔、どうして見たらいけないんだよ。
お前が最後にシャノンちゃんに会ったのは昨日か。
I was gonna say keep that as your last memory of her.
そうか、そのシャノンちゃんは別れ際にお前にどんな顔を見せた？
素敵な笑顔だったよ。
After he handed her the ring, she hesitated, even though she must have already made up her mind. Then she looked bashful and ran away because she was embarrassed to let him see her face looking like that. That's the expression that was revived in George's mind.
そうか。ならシャノンちゃんもその笑顔をお前に残したいと願うはずや。
Hideyoshi looked down upon Shannon's body lying at his feet. Just like the other bodies, it was in such a horrible state that it'd make anyone want to cover their eyes. Her head had been smashed in from the side, and no more than half of her expression remained. If the remaining blood-soaked half of her expression had been wiped clean, would that graceful smile of hers have peeked out? But only half. Without thinking, Hideyoshi slapped his hands over his eyes. How brutal. If her face was going to be crushed anyway, then if only all of it had been crushed, he might have been able to temporarily distract George from his pain by making the pathetic suggestion that it was someone else wearing Shannon's clothes. But half of her face had been left untouched. It caused the body so much humiliation, while still proving beyond doubt that the body was Shannon's and no one else's. How inhuman, how brutish. And there, trying his best to burn the image of the remaining half of Shannon's expression into his eyes as she lay at Hideyoshi's feet, was Cannon. Cannon was not crying. Tears had risen to his eyes, but they did not drip down. But that did not mean he wasn't feeling as much sadness as everyone else. Losing Shannon, who had lived with him in the same orphanage, whom he had loved as a sister, Must have been just the same as losing a blood relative.
ジョージ、シャノンちゃんはきっとありがとう言うてるぞ。お前に恥ずかしいところを見られとうなかったんや。きっとお前が耐えてくれたこと感謝しとるで。
分かってる。分かってるよ、父さん。分かってるよ。
George leaned against the outside wall of the storehouse, crouching down limply.
父さん、頼みがあるんだ。
なんや。
僕の代わりに見てほしいんだ。シャノンは指に指輪をつけてるかな。
指輪？ちょいと見てみる。ああ、あるで。こりゃダイヤの指輪や。クズダイヤとちゃう。なかなかの値打ちもんや。
それはどっちの手のどの指にあるのかな。
と左手の薬指や。そっか、シャノンちゃん婚約しとったんか。
ジョージ、あなたまさか。
エヴァ、今はそんなん関係ないで。シャノンちゃんは男に将来を約束されとったんや。一生を幸せにしちゃると男に言う。それが誰かは問題とちゃうで。男にそこまで言わしめて女の本懐やないか。いつこの指輪をもらったんかは誰が渡したかも知らん。だがそれでもシャノンちゃんは指輪をもらえたんや。そしてそれを受け入れ左の薬指に通したんや。指輪を送った男もきっと喜んだんとちゃうか。
To most of the people there, Hideyoshi was simply disturbed by this extraordinary situation and was blurting out nonsense. However, someone who knew of George and Shannon's true relationship would understand the full meaning of those words.
そっか。ありがとう、父さん。
George stood up. The traces of tears still streaked his face, but his expression had returned to its usual calm one.
行こう。バトラー君、ジェシカちゃん。これ以上僕たちがここにいると大人の邪魔になる。
そうだな。
Jessica sniffled once, showing her face to her mother, who had been holding her the whole time, to let her know she was okay now. When she faced George again, she once again had on her usual expression. Although she still couldn't smile.
バトラー、しっかり。
Battler kept on crouching in front of his parents' bodies.
すまねえな。がっつり泣いたら落ち着いたぜ。親父の野郎。普段はクソクソ言ってるくせに、ちょっと死んじまったくらいでピーピー泣くんじゃねえぜって、笑ってやがる。仕方ねえだろ。親が死んだら泣くように。遺伝子すり込まれちまってんだからよ。
Battler's face was still bright red from the tears, but he had at least recovered enough to fake a smile, if only a bitter one.
カノン、お前もこれ以上ここにいてはいけません。 子供たちを連れてお屋敷に戻っていなさい。
Natsuhi had been standing under the rain this whole time, unable to take a step into the storehouse. Maybe she had her own way of grieving, different from Battler's. Realizing that she had to take on a role of responsibility now that her husband was dead, she gave Cannon those orders.
はい、奥様。
Cannon rose silently and turned to face me. His face was pure white, almost as though his own heart had died along with Shannon. And there was no life in his expression. On an ordinary day, if he had been told to guide the children through the beautiful rose garden, Cannon might have led the way. But now there was no distinction between Cannon and the children. They were now just kids of about the same age, suffering the pain of losing those close to them. After making sure that the children were leaving, Natsuhi started giving orders to Genji.
現地、すぐに警察に連絡しなさい。台風が通り過ぎるまでは来られないでしょうが、どうすればいいか指示を。
わかりました。
When she heard that, Natsuhi remembered. That's right, the phones were out today, weren't they? However, they also had a radio, since they couldn't necessarily rely on the phones all the time while living on an isolated island. At any rate, they should start by contacting the police and receiving their instructions. Everything else could wait.
ナチョ先生、もうこの場はどうしようもありませんか。
残念ながら私には何もできませんな。
わかりました。源氏、せめて主人たちの顔を何かで覆ってやることはできませんか。このような姿を晒すことは当人にとっても屈辱的でしょうから。
はい。
Genji picked up several dried-up towels from inside the storehouse when Eva stopped him with a shrill voice.
ちょっとちょっと、お待ちなさいよ。
What?
ここは犯行現場なんでしょ。なら変に手を加えちゃダメよ。私たちは混乱してて現場に土足で踏み入っちゃったけど、それはきっと警察の捜査の邪魔になったわよ。
Natsuhi glared at Eva, offended. Objectively speaking, Eva was right. Even so, she glared at Eva as though accusing her of refusing to do those tragic corpses which had been humiliated even after death, the simple kindness of covering their faces. However, Eva had spoken both calmly and correctly. This horrible situation definitely wasn't an accident. It was a crime. Someone had killed them. It was a murder case. So they needed to be careful to avoid disturbing the site any further. They had to do what little they could to aid the police, preserving clues that might help catch the detestable culprit.
私もエヴァさんに賛成ですな。警察が来るまでここは手をつけずにしておくべきです。
奥様、いかがなさいますか。
そうですね、わかりました。ここを閉ざしなさい。それから念のためここに別の
施錠。
ええ、ここに来た時シャッターの鍵は閉じていました。ということはシャッターの鍵を使い犯人が施錠したということです。
確かに通りや。じゃあここを開けた限り犯人の指紋が残ってるんとちゃうんか。
Outside in the rain, or?
警察に証拠として提出する価値はあるでしょうけど、カノン君が普通に持ってここを開けるのに使用しちゃったわ。多分カノン君の指紋も付着しちゃってるわよ。そしてその鍵はさっき源氏さんに手渡され、源氏さんも素手で受け取ってる。大した証拠にはなりそうにないわね。
Yeah.
それは不用心でした。申し訳ございません。
源氏さん、この倉庫の鍵は他にもあるんか。
いいえ、この一つだけです。
ということは犯人はその鍵を使用人室から持ち出し、そして律儀に元の場所に戻したちゅうことになるな。
Hideyoshi's theory sounded plausible, but was actually very strange if you thought about it. Why would they go to all the trouble of returning a key they stole? No, if you think about it even more deeply, there are some points that are even more bizarre. When a criminal hides a body, they're usually trying to delay the point at which it'll be found so they can use that time to escape. The 6 weren't necessarily killed here, but it was reasonable to assume that they were killed somewhere on this island, carried to this storehouse, and hidden to delay the discovery of the crime. I mean, with how brutal the oh, they said that was probably done after death, right? So there wouldn't be like trails of blood anywhere. We don't necessarily know how they were killed. But the state that they're in now was done in the storehouse after they were killed, right? And yet the eerie magic circle scribbled on the storehouse shutter had eloquently indicated the location of the hidden corpses. Sure, it didn't explicitly mention the corpses, but 6 people had gone missing. In that situation, someone had made such an obvious piece of graffiti and even returned the key to the shutter, almost as though they wanted the corpses here to be discovered.
とにかく一度は犯人が開け閉めをした施錠だけでは信用できません。犯人の手からもこの場所を保護する意味で施錠を新たにしたいと言っているのです。
いい案だと思います。私も賛成です。
Genji fished around inside the storehouse and unsealed a brand new padlock that had been inside a small box.
鍵はどうなさいますか？
私が持ちましょう。
Ooh.
責任を持って警察に手渡します。
Natsuhi took the key to the padlock from Genji's hand. Hopefully not putting even more fingerprints on it. After that, they all exited and lowered the shutter. And so the corpses were once again sealed behind that shutter, which was still covered with that creepy magic circle. Genji crouched down in front of the shutter to fasten the new padlock. Shutters often have a place in front where you can attach your own lock, in addition to the main lock of the shutter. This is one of those types. In the midst of the roar of thunder and the pouring rain, the storehouse stood there ominously, with its closed shutter still covered in a blood-like, creepy substance. It swallowed up the bodies of the 6. To Natsuhi, putting the new lock on wasn't mainly to preserve the scene for the police. She might have felt like she wanted to shut that mouth for all eternity. To prevent that eerie beast from swallowing up any more victims.
さあ行きましょう。南條先生、ご足労を。源氏は急いで警察に連絡を。
戻りましたらすぐに連絡します。
I just completely forget to read. The adults left the storehouse. The ghastly magic circle drawn on the shutter kept the 6 bodies in its throat, looming eerily as the lightning occasionally lit it up. Oh, okay. Well, don't think there's any hiding how much that Shannon scene got to me. Jesus Christ. Now you can get the first taste of how much of a little bitch I am when it comes to this shit. Whew. It's kind of hard to talk for a bit there, obviously. I'm sure it came through very clearly. Yeah, I don't know. I get affected by stories like that, like shit like that easily, and I don't know. all that could be heard from the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' TV program Maria was watching, and the engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the TV. Those who returned to the room didn't know how to explain to Maria that her mother was dead, and were trapped by a suffocating silence. I think we should put that aside for the immediate moment. It's only going to get a million times harder to deal with the situation if Maria is, flipping out over that. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look, but when she realized they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them and again immersed herself in the TV program. The children wordlessly sat down heavily on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from their state of shock. Everyone had already cried and mourned so much, but now they just vaguely sat there, their faces seeming to have lost all emotion. Only Cannon had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean he'd been able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into the empty space. Hideyoshi kept on fidgeting, and every time he remembered that horrible scene, he started muttering about how he couldn't believe it, how it couldn't have been something from this world, how it must have been the work of demons. Every now and then, his mutterings produced a question directed at Nanjo, but the latter kept repeating in a calm, doctor-like manner that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene, and that until the police arrived, they wouldn't learn anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm next to Hideyoshi, who simply couldn't suppress his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock, and his face was a deathly pale. Maybe that atmosphere was why she tried to rise to the challenge and take charge. Natsuhi appeared to be unchanged from her normal attitude, and she briskly gave directions.
私はお父様のところへ行ってきます。源氏は急ぎ警察へ連絡を。
かしこまりました。
I mean, Natsuhi's probably preparing herself like, oh shit, I need to go tell Kinzo that several of his children and butlers are dead. But Kinzo's expecting this. He's not going to be surprised in the slightest. He's the one who made it happen. He's responsible.
クラウス兄さんがいなくなった以上、お父様の補佐は私の仕事だもの。その私が夏日姉さんに任せっきりで、ここでくつろいでいるわけにはいかないわ。
Natsuhi was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive move in a situation like this. Taking charge, saying, if Kraus is gone, I'm in charge now, not you, Natsuhi. Of course. She seemed to be claiming that with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility shouldn't be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Or maybe she hadn't been at all happy when Natsuhi took command without reference to her in such an extreme situation. However, even Ava's mind had been blank from shock until a moment ago. She only came to her senses after Natsuhi started giving orders. Oh, you didn't like that.
お好きになさるといいでしょう。
Natsuhi started walking without saying a word more. Ava followed behind her. Oh, hello, Kumasawa. As they did, Kumasawa ran into the parlor. She usually wasn't the kind of person to run around, so under normal conditions, most people wouldn't have taken her entrance as a sign that something was a matter. But because everyone was still stricken with shock, they hardly even noticed her. Oh, God. Now what? Is there more?
夏日姉さんならお父さんのところへ行ったで。すぐ戻ってくるやろ。どないしたんや、熊沢さん。
それが食堂に
Oh,
チン
in the dining hall. The ears of everyone in the parlor twitched. Don't say that in front of Maria. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Any container can only hold so much, and no one here would be capable of handling yet another tragedy. So they all thought it. I hope I misheard that.
なんやて食堂
Maybe some of them were initially murdered there and then brought to the storehouse?
朝食の準備に食堂に配膳に行ったら
The first one to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses, and they chased after him. Battler and the others followed. Including Maria? They flew into the dining hall one after another, but they didn't find any change that might have caused Kumasawa to go pale. To those who had viewed the gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood remaining on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it wasn't very impressive. I mean, you're just numb to anything less now. Oh boy. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood. Something must have started here, at least for some of them.
ここにも血だまりがあるよ。これは一体。
だいぶ時間が経っているように見えますな。
Do we have more missing people? We know where Maria, Battler, George, Natsuhi, Jessica are. We know where Genji is, Cannon, Kumasawa, Nanjo. So no, we've there's no new murders, at least. We've kept track of everyone. We know where everyone is. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
おそらく昨夜ここで殺されたんだと見ていいでしょう。
You say last night, but I thought we saw most of them at the midnight stroke of the clock where it showed everyone. It didn't show everyone, but I can't think of who it didn't show. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know. But Nanjo had assumed that the murders happened, or the bodies had been there since 2 a.m., right? Or when he says 2 a.m., when he says last night, does 2 a.m. count as last night?
わしらは昨夜ずっと食堂で話し合いをしとった。そしてここに何者かが押し入ったに違いない。
父さんたちが打ち合わせを抜けて休んだのは何時だっけ？
昨夜の24時を少し過ぎたくらいの
Little
頃や。
past midnight, okay.
だからその後にと考えるんが妥当やろな。
Okay.
マジかよ。勘弁してくれよ。お嬢様、しっかり。
俺はもうさっきの倉庫でこの世の地獄ってやつを拝んじまったから今さらこの
そうかよ。よかったな。
Ugh.
私は頭がどうにかなっちまいそうだぜ。ここは食堂だぜ。私が毎日ここで食事をして学校のことをぼやいたり宿題のことをぼやいたり親父に学校の成績の話をされたりそういうところなんだぜ。お嬢様、これ以上ここにいるのはよくありません。100万へ戻りましょう。
俺の同感さ秀吉おじさん、この部屋は多分警察にとって重要な意味があると思います。
Lock it up.
俺たちが踏み荒らしちまうのは まずいんじゃないですか。
Battler proposed this in a slightly firm voice as, along with Cannon, he grabbed the pail and shaking Jessica's shoulders.
バトラさんの言う通りですな。この部屋にこれ以上好んで居続けることはありますまい。
Nanjo spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse felt like something not of this world, at least then we'd be able to leave, to cut ourselves off from that place and run away. Everyone had shared in that feeling. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion, the main building on this estate, and as Jessica had said, it should have been one of the most calming places, even inside the mansion. It was where all of the relatives had eaten lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we hadn't really been able to run away from that scene of that tragedy.
わしも同感や。この部屋には犯人の痕跡が残ってるかもわからんし、素人のわしらがかき回すべきとちゃうで。はよ出るんや。はよはよ。
Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. It was almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there all alone. Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa, who was still trembling and leaning against the wall, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then Genji returned.
お、源氏さん、警察に連絡はつきましたか？それが申し訳ございません。
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be that easy. We're gonna be stuck, isolated.
無線機の故障か、それ以外の理由によるものかわかりませんが。
なんや、警察に連絡がつかんのか。
A classic trapped on an island with a murderer.
電話も無線もどっちもダメなんか。
申し訳ございません。月曜の朝に船が来ることになっていますので、その船の通信機を借りることができると思います。
I mean, if the boat's arriving on Monday, fuck the communications to hop on that boat and get out of here.
この
Although
島
that's
に
still
は
a ways
船
away.
はないんか。新島の警察署までちょっくら行ってくることはできんのか。
Probably not during the storm. It's dangerous.
秀吉さん、この天気では無理だ。少なくとも台風が通り過ぎるまではどうにもなりません。クラウス様のボートは今修理中で島にございません。ですので月曜の船を待つほかないかと。
そんなアホな話があるか。6人も死んだやで。そして電話も無線も通じず、船もない。
Isn't this a room Maria was in? You guys aren't talking like within earshot of her, right?
台風が過ぎて船が来るまで、つまり明日の朝までわしらは警察にも連絡できず、この島におれっちゅうことなんか。
So it's Sunday morning, right? Okay. Currently.
ってことはつまり俺たちだけじゃなくおじさんたちを殺した犯人も
Yep.
この島から出られず足止めってことだな。
そういうことになるね。みんなを殺した犯人はまだこの島にいる。
Whether that's the 19th person or one of you all.
親父たちを殺した奴はこの島から逃げ出せず
まだ潜んでやがるってことかよ。
I mean, there's still the whole, like, I mean, this is just following in line with our epitaph. Are we just meant to assume that the murderer was, like, is this a murder mystery, figure out which one of the people did it, or is it just a Beatrice thing? Okay, well, 6 chosen by the key. So whoever is the key killed the 6. They didn't call Maria a key before, did they? Maybe I feel like they used the word key to describe someone a few episodes ago. Maybe I'll look back, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to find one line of dialogue. Yeah, I assume through Beatrice used someone among our remaining people is the key who murdered the 6. Is what I'm going to assume right now. And I'm also assuming that the key is a person and not like... Yeah, I don't know.
警察になんか引き渡すもんか。私がこの手でやっつ先にしてやる。
Oh. Yeah, like, I've been thinking about Maria this whole time. Like, what is she thinking about everything that's going on right now? Maria had finally realized that something odd was happening in the parlor. Rather than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say she felt unhappy and neglected, since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about. Excited is a word choice.
おー、ジェシカお姉ちゃん、誰か死んじゃったの？
That is a weird way to... What? Just kind of reminded me of like Ilya from Fate. Just like this cold, you know, a little girl was just like cold and uncaring about... The way she spoke was completely calm, just as though she was talking about someone who had appeared on a television drama, as though it was someone else's problem. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though trying to say, "Can't you tell just by looking at me, overwhelmed with grief?" She flared up at Maria. Oh boy.
死んじまったぜ。みん
Stop.
な。
Stop.
私の親父も、
Oh
僕ら
no.
の父さんと母さんも、幸田さんもシャノンも、
Don't say it. Don't say it.
そしてマリアの母さんも。
We didn't need this right now.
よすんだジェシカちゃん。悲しいのは君だけじゃない。
マリアさん、ショックだろうが、聞いてください。
We're doing this now, okay? I don't know how she's gonna take it. That weird smiling face with the "did someone die?" Like, complete uncaring attitude. That was really weird.
あなたのお母さんがな、死んでしまいました。
ママが死んじゃった？おー。
Does she not understand?
ああ。誰かに殺されちまった。悲しいだろうがよ。心をしっかり。
Really? Like, that's the best you got for a 9-year-old? You just told her last parent died, or her parent died? Like, I know it's sad. Stay strong, hang in there, you know. Whoa.
何人死んじゃった？
She knows. I think she's trying to relate it to the epitaph. She's gonna be like, oh, 6, just like the riddle says.
6人だぜ、6人だ。くそくそくそ。
But is she maybe... Why would she be so calm in this situation? Maybe it's because she believes in the riddle, so she assumes that the resurrection will happen no matter what, so she's not worried about the people that died. Maybe she's just so infatuated with the Beatrice that, like, Beatrice can do no wrong, and so the riddle coming to fruition isn't a bad thing. But she should at least be a little upset about her mother,
あん
right?
な残酷なことしやがって。踊ってもんがあるだろうがよ。人間ならよ。誰だか知らねえが、犯人は人間じゃねえぜ。
You're right, it's the witch.
血の色が赤いわけがねえ。
Maria's gonna... Where's Maria?
犯人は人間じゃない。
Oh no.
鍵が選んだ生贄なだけ。
It's just the... It's the... wait. It's the key chosen by the demon's roulette? Right? Those what those 2 blanks are? I mean, not the key. Sorry, it's the sacrifices chosen by the key. Or the sacrifices chosen by the demon roulette. Right?
おい、マリア、今、なんて言った？
Maria had just said something. But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow and context of the conversation, I couldn't understand them for a second. When I tried to ask her to repeat it again, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Natsuhi's loud voice coming from the entrance to the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsuhi and Aunt Ava had returned from their trip to see grandfather. What the fuck is going on with Maria? She's the messenger, right? Beatrice chose her as the messenger. She, like... She doesn't seem like she's in her right mind. Literally just this morning, she was all upset because her mother wasn't where her mother wasn't in bed. Like, she was throwing a temper tantrum. And then she only calmed down because she got told that her mom was in the mansion. Now she's getting told that her mom's dead, and she's just like, oh, how many died? Well, it's just because it's the sacrifices chosen by the key or the demon's roulette. Like, what is going on with her? She's got, like, a split personality thing or something going on. Ugh.
無線でも連絡できない？
Oh, okay, yeah.
こんな時に使えなくて何のための防災無線ですか？
I wanted to see the meeting with Kinzo, like, how he would react, if it would just be complete calmness or whatever.
申し訳ございません。毎年保守点検はさせているはずなのですが。
ほら、光をチカチカさせるみたいな船舶シーン、そういうので向こうの島に連絡することはできないのかしら？
そのような設備はございません。
It's a small
申し訳
oversight.
ございません。
Oh, are you smiling now? You were really upset and shaking before. Just then Kumasawa arrived, pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we'd be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered her to take it to the parlor.
なぜ朝食をこちらに？
Oh, you don't know.
ああ、夏日さん、それは後で話す。それよりエヴァ、お父さんはどうなんや？
ご一緒でないところを見ると、このような事態になっても部屋から出ませんか。
This is all part of the plan.
いないわ。
Oh,
部屋は空っぽだったのよ。
interesting.
なんやて？こんな時にどこ行ったんや？
We get so many new tracks these past couple episodes. So many new soundtracks.
親方様が書斎を出られたというのですか。
This one really reminds me of like a maybe not anymore. I was gonna say like the start of the song really reminds me of, I don't know, some song from maybe Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. The sound effect used for like that singing, that hush whisper singing kind of thing, and the tune that was being used.
そ
All
う
right,
で
so
す。
where's Kinzo?
私も驚いています。いつの間に部屋を出たのやら。あなたたちに心当たりはないのですか？
Natsuhi looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Maybe she was trying to ask whether servants who served directly under the one-winged eagle knew of a place he might go. However, it was probably the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than the rest how impossible it was for him to leave his room.
僕たちにも見当がつきません。
ご存知の通
Where could
り、
he be?
親方様はあの書斎の中にお休みの場所からご不浄まで全てを設けさせました。親方様があの部屋をお出になることなどよっぽどのことがない限り考えられません。
となると、なんや、そのよっぽどのことがあったって考えるのが自然だっちゅうことになる
I'm
ん
gonna
か。
turn up the voice volume just a tiny bit because the music is a little louder than it.
酒は我が友だ。酒は我が友だ。
まだそうと決まったわけではありません。
What do you say? That one of those significant reasons. Okay.
とにかく気まぐれな方ですから。現状をご存知なく、お一人で散歩をされている可能性もあります。
Yeah, go for a walk. That sounds just like Kinzo.
仮にそうだとしたら、一刻も早く現状をお知らせして、ご指示を仰がねばなりません。
そうね、考えたくはないけど、お父様の身に何かあったのかもしれないし
You look
ね。
so worried, Ava.
そのような不吉なことは考えたくもありません。
No one had seen Kinzo since the discovery of those 6 terrible corpses. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio wouldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. Apparently, the typhoon would leave tomorrow, and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. The tragedy had hit everyone so abruptly that they had lost all their composure. Everyone felt a heavy silence. Everyone was impatient. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. So some of them held their heads in their arms while others got irritated. Right now, no one could explain what was occurring on this island, Rokkenjima. Ugh. Alright. I think that is a good stopping point for the episode. I'm going to keep recording, but and start a new episode so that it stays in sync. Geez, the first quarter or third of this episode, holy hell, I was holding it back. I was struggling, man. The, seeing George in all that pain, seeing Cannon care, just about the Shannon stuff, it like really hit me hard. Like really hard. And now we have a missing Kinzo, We have Maria acting like a creepy fuck. I don't know what's going on with her. She is acting insane. She's done a 180 from her attitude this morning. She's not in her, like, messenger Beatrice mode. Like, when she read the letter, she went into, like, a whole different voice and, like, personality. Because she stopped doing all her oohs and stuff. She was talking like an adult then. Here, she's still Maria. Like, she's still got her ooh thing. She's still talking like a 9-year-old. But she suddenly, you know, has no interest in grieving for her mother. She's just interested in the riddle and the witch and how this all connects to that. I bet Kinzo has gone to look for Beatrice, or maybe he knows where Beatrice is. He assumes that the 6 sacrifices have been made. And he's going to find his witch. His Beatrice. Alright. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see where he is. I assume we'll find him next episode. But we'll see. Alright, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And I will catch you in the next episode.